Welcome to the Band Batch ANDOR Music Brickdown. Get it? It's like breakdown, but it's brickdown. Because, okay. I'm Chrysanthi. You can call me Xanthi. And today with me is, of course, the Band Batch. Justin, here at the top, Christina, and James will be joining as soon as his computer restarts so he can get his webcam working. Hello, everyone. Today we're reviewing the music sound and, disco droids of of Andor, episodes 201 to 203. That's season 2, episodes 1, 2, and 3. And these episodes were called 1 Year Later, Sigrona Tima, and Harvest.
After Skeleton Crew, is it funny to go back to the old sound of the Disney Plus Star Wars logo? Right, because wasn't Skeleton Crew like the only one to really do something different with it? And then we went back to this.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting the Skeleton Crew music.
Matthew says some new Star Wars instruments and floating DJ droid episodes. Yes, we have so much to talk about.
This was
first. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna agree and just say this was like diegetic music heaven.
I know there was
these 3 episodes.
So much diegetic music. I guess that's what happens when you get a party spanning 3 episodes. So, how did everyone like the episodes? And how are you doing? Christina, you can go first.
Quite well. Yes. I really liked the episodes. I really enjoyed getting to see, I guess my favorite part of the Star Wars universe in a lot of ways is arts and culture, and getting to see these other planets and various societies and how they do arts and culture. And we really got some insight into that. They really delved deep into the Chandrillan culture, which I thought was a little bit reminiscent of why do I blank on this? Princess Leia's planet.
Alderaan?
Alderaan, yes. I'm always sad that I didn't get to see more Alderaanian culture, and I get the feeling that maybe the vibe I get from Alderaanian culture and the vibe I get from Chandrillan culture are kind of similar, and so I enjoy getting to kind of imagine how, I don't know, it awoke my imagination. And I enjoyed all the different mood music for different scenes. I love seeing Cyril and Deidre.
Oh, they're so good.
And Cyril's mother. And yeah, I enjoyed it, and I am doing well. Thank you for asking.
Good. Hi, James. We're just talking about just overall, how did we like this first batch of episodes?
Yeah. Well, sorry I'm late. I have one of the new Mac Studios, and I've had it for a couple years, and I think I bought a Logitech 4K webcam like maybe a year before I bought that computer, and it's never played nice ever. And now I think it's like it's officially, I think they're mortal enemies now. I think it's come to a head or something. Some update happened where it's basically now useless with any web video conferencing. So I'm on a laptop in my kitchen right now. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. So this is like the opposite of an advertisement for Logitech. These 3 episodes. Wow. I got to be honest with you. I had somewhat of like an out of body experience watching these episodes. Like, just kind of like, I had multiple moments through these 3 episodes where I was both like, thank you, and I cannot believe this show exists. like I can't believe, I'm like watching, I'm just like, what is this? How did this show get made? Like, how are we watching like the intricacies of a very like interesting subdom like imperial like domestic partnership play out in the way that
you should say Dom first, James.
Okay.
Dom sub.
You're right. Dom sub. Dom's come first. Okay, so the so
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm like I had multiple moments where I was just like, I can't believe this show exists, and I'm so thankful it exists. It's amazing. It's so amazing, and yeah, I was blown away, really blown away, and really happy. I was telling Xanth like a couple, I don't know, we were texting a couple like days ago or whatever, and I was like, I'm a little bit like, I've been a little bit off the Star Wars train lately, just because I'm like a content parasite, you know, like if you feed me content, I get all riled up, but when I don't have that dopamine kick, like I, you know, like I love Star Wars as always, it's deep love, but I just haven't been like thinking about Star Wars and living and breathing Star Wars for a while, because we just haven't had anything for a while, you know, and now I'm right back in, you know, so pretty exciting.
Justin, your first impressions on the batch of episodes? And feel free to go into like your musical first impressions if you want.
Yeah, same with everybody. It's I've been counting down like the seconds until Andor season. I've been counting down since the first season stopped. So I was super excited for all of this, and weird three first little arc of episodes, but so cool in the sense of like what Christina was saying, really delving into like the like I swear they keep saying it
Shandy.
different. They're like all different. Chandrillan.
I feel like
They're
they've
all they
also
all
said
say it
Shandy.
differently. Chandy, all these things like that. That's interesting. Yeah, delving into like the arts and the culture of this society that's like, we'll talk about this later, but like
Yeah.
this rich modern society trying to go back to ancient traditions in a very awkward, beautiful way.
Yeah.
And then ending with a drunk disco, which is super
A
fun.
very extended like I don't
Very
remember
extended drunk disco.
I was
Yeah.
like the extended.
There are a lot of
super
out of body
remix.
experiences for me, in the same sense, James, just kind of watching this and just like, how did it's just so good. And it
Well,
looks good, and it feels good, and it sounds good. It's just every little bit is just so interesting, and a lot of crazy musical choices. And I feel like this show's been like musical boundary breaking.
yeah,
I feel like with Star
absolutely.
Wars. I always
Well,
harken back to that first episode with the drums that we talked like what we I think we talked about that for like 20 minutes
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
something like that.
Well,
from the first
I'm
season.
finding like the place that this exists, like I'd say like in the culture right now the show exists. Like I feel like there was like a somewhat like testing the waters a little bit like years ago with all these new shows in terms of
Hmm.
aesthetic choices. And
Mm.
I think things, especially even when like Rogue One even came out, if we look way back, like Rogue One still had to like communicate aesthetically, like, you know, even with the score that
Hmm.
they, you know, like, and the choices. I think my understanding is that they went and they recut it pretty significantly, Rogue One, right? Or like they like kind of chopped it up and reshot some stuff. I think they were like really like, okay, we're gonna do something different, but we still have to like maintain this like aesthetic like allegiance to like what people think Star Wars is when they think about the music and when they think about how it's shot and what the stories are doing. I feel
Hmm.
like now, flash forward to where we are right now, I feel like all bets are off, and I think like Lucasfilm seems like they barely care anymore. I think like it's also, I think like some of the social discourse around choices have just exploded into a nuclear like craziness on the internet over the last number of years of just like I'm almost reading like they're like, well, we can't please everyone, so let's let Tony Gilroy just like make this wild like I think season 1 was way safer, even though it was really different like with its choices, but I feel like
Hmm.
off the bat it's like communicating to me, they're like, we don't care what you think a Star Wars show should be, we're just going to do this, we're just going to do this, and we don't care anyway because everybody is going to fight each other online anyway, so like that's kind of what you know, that's kind of how I'm feeling about what I'm seeing on
Yeah,
screen, you know what I mean?
I
Like I feel
feel
like
like
we've gone to a post complaint, like worried about the complainers world in some ways, you know. So yeah.
I'm just gonna give my thoughts on the first few episodes. I also enjoyed them. I agree with Christina about the sort of parallels between Chandrilan culture and the little that we saw of Alderaanian culture. Yeah, especially that like early in the Kenobi series when Leia's getting ready and all that stuff. And I think maybe it's just like this is what rich societies are like. I think that might be like more of a through line because I don't know. Maybe Chandrila and Alderaan have I don't know a wide class class system. I'm not sure what the disparities are on those in those places, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the first few episodes. Loved Cyril and Dedra. That was maybe the highlight. Also, seeing so many instruments. We saw four, I
Yeah.
think. I think we saw four instruments in the first episode and then in the third episode. And that's just exciting. And we will talk about it. I have screenshots of them. And then, of course, callbacks from last season, like the Niamos song, which is just popular in the galaxy. And we heard several times last season. Yeah. I do have a leading question before I get to some of these comments. This season, Nicholas Bertel had some like family emergency and he had to dip out. And there's a different composer for most of the season, and it's Brandon Roberts. Could you all tell a difference? And what do you remember? Like, I don't know if season one is super fresh for you. It's not super fresh for me. I started listening to I've listened to 4 episodes of season one this past week, but yeah. First impressions, did you notice a difference in the score?
I wouldn't have been that way to tell you that. No.
It's weird because
Personally.
it's kind of one of those things where it's you don't notice it and then you see the name and then you like go find things in your mind. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, really? Oh, kind of. So that's why I'm trying not to like.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have told, but thinking about
There's a
it,
oh,
No, go ahead.
no. Sometimes I read pauses incorrectly, and so yeah,
No,
you
I was
should
just gonna
totally keep
say
going.
like in retrospect, we could maybe argue it feels a little. I don't know. I don't know. See, that's the thing. Because
What
I wouldn't know what he would
I
have done with it. Oh, go ahead. No, sorry.
I do have a clear thought on it. One, which is there is a difference that I've noticed, but it could be because of the content of the show. One of the things that was really present in Andor season one was this kind of intense square wave synthy 80s
Mhm.
like these kind of harsh electronic sounds. And however, those were also strongly related to like Luthen creeping around or to the prison or to other kind of non-aristocratic and also non-rural locations in the Star Wars universe. So I don't know if I could say that it was. I mean, that could be because of a composer difference, but it also could be because I just noticed that to me that's the biggest difference between what I hear. Also, my entire notebook with including notes about Andor season one is gone, so not
Oh
able to
no.
refer back.
What
Tragedy.
happened to it? That's really sad.
That's I would love to know.
Oh my gosh. I'm really sorry.
If you find a
That
notebook,
sucks.
kind of light gray blue, about the size of half a sheet of paper of, 8.5 by 4 kind of a vibe, please send it my
I will.
way.
So I knew about the composer change before going in, and I wish I didn't, because I would like to know whether I would have noticed a difference if I didn't know that there was a composer change. Because I did notice a difference from very early on, but then I don't know if I was in my head, which is why I was like, oh, I have to listen to season one now to see if I mean it
Yeah.
or not.
I would argue this is more orchestral in what Christina's saying and agreeing. Like it's less electronic 80s hearkening of the sound, like not necessarily the style, but like the sound. And this is definitely like we got like a a French horn solo, and
That's true.
it felt a little bit more in that line and a lot less electronic.
Yep, that's what
There
people in
was
chat
a
are
moment.
saying.
There was a
Go
really
ahead.
sweet moment. I'm trying to. I have to say, like, I'm gonna try to next week. I'm gonna try to do a little bit more homework. It's been a crazy week, but there was a moment that I remember thinking there was like a sweet moment that I thought was a little bit veering into too sweet. Like it was too
Too
on the
saccharine.
nose. I'm wondering if there you go. Yeah, and there
I'll
was a
tell you
moment.
where it was.
I'm
Just kidding.
okay. You know where it was, right?
I
Okay.
might, because I wrote something
I think
about
we're gonna
that.
be talking. Yeah, can you tell me? Can you bring that up? Because I was like, that's interesting. That feels a little
Was it
bit
in season
out of.
2, around 10 something?
It
Was
was
it like
definitely in
Nina
season.
Rao?
It was definitely it was definitely in season 2. Yeah,
Sorry,
not season
episode 2.
1.
There were a
Okay, cool.
couple like sweet sounding things. One was like Chandrilla
Yeah,
theme. One was, or like the wedding
yeah. I think
Yeah.
it
theme.
was on Tringilla. Yeah, where where did you say it was? The timestamp or whatever.
It's throughout like 14:10 of season of episode 1 is one where it's like and it's like I just remember there was like a very notable major seventh in it.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the
Right,
same
and
spot. But there was a little parts
You
of it
don't
I was
love
like, that
sugar
seems a little bit like that seems a little bit more like romantically inspired than I'm accustomed to hearing in the show. You know, and there was a couple moments like that. And now that I think that it might be written by somebody else, now I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of explains maybe that choice because I don't think Bertel would have made that choice last season.
Well, the composer, God, I keep forgetting his name, Brandon Roberts, did an interview and said that they were trying on purpose to bridge the gap between to bridge from Andor to Rogue One by getting progressively more orchestral. So
ooh.
yeah,
It
that might
is,
have
yeah,
something to
it
do.
is definitely this point. I just watched it, so yeah, it's definitely the point where you're seeing the bridesmaids or whatever on the wedding. Yeah,
Yeah, it's this.
where
Ooh,
like it was a
sorry.
little bit
Go.
like dun 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 dun. It was a little bit
Yeah.
go for it, Zam. There you go.
That's
There
from
you
Bad
go.
Batch. Um,
God, single most worst musical decision ever made by a composer in the Star Wars project. But
I
maybe not since we've gotten like the most meme
but now
mileage
it's
that we could
funny,
possibly
so
get.
yeah,
Yeah,
we have to love
yeah.
it. Yeah, so there's other people making comments. Oh, my keyboard is quiet. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so definitely notice a difference, says Sam. I didn't notice the music much at all when I first watched season 1, but I noticed it even just in the first 3 episodes. It definitely sounded more orchestral. Ender/Arikfon says, I also thought the instrumentation seemed different, more orchestral. Matthew says, I didn't realize they switched the score until after the fact. Once again, they reused the rave song from season 1, but just ended up remixing it. Yeah, and they did release the soundtrack for Volume 1, Season 2. They like all the music is already out. So I have I went and on Spotify listened to the soundtrack this morning and like right clicked to see who wrote everything. And so obviously there still are plenty of themes and things from Nicholas Bertel. I'm curious if they used like his actual recordings or at least I don't know synth patches or I'm curious what Brandon Roberts was provided with. I'll also say there are 2 other composers that are listed as also doing music. So they're Alexander Bornstein and Maxwell Karmazin. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but yeah. So throughout the soundtrack, there are 4 composers listed if you right click and look at the song credits. So some of them have like someone else listed first, meaning that like the track 4, Remember Me, is written by Alexander Bornstein and Brandon Roberts. So I think that means that Alexander Bornstein probably took the lead on that one, and it's probably like an assistant or something. So
By the way, I just want to interject real quick, just interject something completely unrelated. But I was just trying to find our stream on YouTube, and I searched Band Batch Star Wars, and then Google insultingly said to me, "Did you mean Bad Batch Star Wars?" No,
Ugh.
Google, we don't mean that. Okay, get your shit right. Okay, Band Batch
Ugh.
Star Wars should be a suggested searchable term. Okay, just wanted to say that real quick.
My YouTube algorithm was very
Alright,
different.
sorry.
As soon as I opened YouTube, I went to my subscriptions and the live stream was right at the top. It knew what I wanted to look at
Oh,
today
look at that.
and it gave it right to me.
So the message here, kids, is like and subscribe. Hit that
Christina.
like button and subscribe.
Exactly.
Be like
Yes.
Christina.
Okay, so
I like the comment that that Matthew Fab was making about being protected from the execs at Disney, and we were talking just a little bit earlier about kind of like the freedom that the show seems to have, just doing whatever they want. We were kind of amazed with that. I was kind of amazed with that. I just thought I'd point that out that I like his comment.
It's interesting.
yeah, let me read this
It's-
quote. Oh, we were protected
I
all
was
the way
just
down the
gonna say-
line. Kathy, sorry, I think we must have a latency. Anyway, everyone protected us, is what the quote says. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's interesting because didn't Skeleton Crew also kind of have a little bit of like hands off from major studio execs and stuff like that, and it also turned out to be a kind of interesting, fun show. I don't know. There's a through line here.
Yeah.
Learn studio.
Art over profit.
Yep. There's something there.
So, okay, regarding the music in these first few episodes, I'm curious for the development of how we get to the more orchestral sound of episode 12 of the last arc, and I'm curious also because I did hear that Nicholas Bertel, when he started scoring the show before he dropped out, he was doing more of the back half. And so I'm curious what degree, like who did the bulk of the work in the like last two arcs. I'm very curious. I do think that for my taste, these first few episodes, I didn't like the music as much as season 1. Even though I like an orchestral score, I think once it starts becoming orchestral, my standards go very high. And maybe also, sorry, but also there were really high highs, like the diegetic moments were all like highlights, especially the song, like the jazz or whatever they were listening to when Cyril and Dedra are getting ready. Really good. Diegetic instruments, like so much to like. And a lot of the action cues for me felt a little bit more, what's a word to describe it? Like, I mean, right out the gate, like when Andor is stealing the TIE Defender. Just a little more, maybe prosaic. Maybe a little more monotonous. Pedestrian.
The only Andor reaction stream this week that has used the word prosaic on air. I have to say. It's interesting.
And I'm curious what you all think about this because I've been wrestling with it, and Andor was kind of challenging me of like they were asking if I like the music in any action sequence because I'm tough on action sequences because they're just hard. I tend not to like them as much in movies and TV, and just right out the gate we had a lot of action, and maybe season 1 didn't have as much action, and so it could also just be the nature of the show, what the show demanded changed, and so maybe it's and I don't blame this on the composer at all. It felt very much like an intentional direction shift. What do you all think? I can give you timestamps if you want to like.
Yeah.
I'm also going to point out really quickly just that like one of the things that I think you probably don't love in things is a lot of loud chaos.
Yeah.
And a lot of the action scenes were explicitly a lot of loud chaos, like these rebel groups shooting at each other for basically no apparent reason. It was a lot of blaster fire, uh, but by like 10, 30 or 10 different, more than five people at least, all firing at the same time. It was never, I don't know, I just point that out that it was both chaotic and uh, it wasn't like one person shooting and then creeping and then shooting. It was just kind of chaotic, I
It
thought.
it's like music
Yeah.
that's underscores that kind of stuff. That's like super chaotic. It's like the sound design is kind of the lead here, and the music is
Mm.
only there to kind of enhance the mood and help the audience gain, in a direction of how they're supposed to, kind of feel about the situation. But really, it's like kind of shoved aside. It's almost like insert action music here, kind of a thing, which is unfortunate to say, but it's like just kind of the assignment a little bit. I'm curious if like that scene with like these scenes with all the action happening, if it had no music, if the sound would be enough to just carry the scene as it is. Because there's a lot of strikingly cool sequences in these 3 episodes that have no music, and because it
Yeah.
has no music, like it's even more powerful. So it's interesting that like with these action scenes, it's like, okay, we need the orchestra going crazy here.
Yeah. I think what it sounded to me like was mock-ups or something. And sorry, not because of the quality of the instrument. Like that wasn't even the problem. Here's an example: is like in episode 1, around the 7-minute mark, it's like like with the drums like do 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 do, and just that cue, for example. I can't. I can't tell if it's bad. Like it sounds like it could be from anywhere. It doesn't sound uniquely Andor, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But like, you could have pulled that out of, I don't know, Mission Impossible. You could have pulled that out of literally any, like,
Mm-hmm.
1,000
Mm-hmm.
things. And there were a lot of cues like that worked fine, but they just sounded like they could have been from anything, and certainly from Bad Batch or any other, or Rebels or something.
I see what you're
Maybe not
saying
Rebels.
then. Yeah, I see what you're saying then about the comment, like like what you were saying about like if you liked the music at all in these first 3 episodes. And again, we're 3 episodes in, so who knows where this is going, right? Um, but it's like I see what you're saying, and I, in a weird way, I agree, because the most exciting things that happened for me musically in these 3 episodes was the diegetic music,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because there's so much of it and so many different kinds, which is really interesting. Um, that the
Yeah.
music itself, the soundtrack itself, was kind of like I got excited when I heard the Andor theme, like da 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 da. I'm like, yay, there it is, kind of that, or like when Bix's theme appears in the end credits of the episode 3, you're just like, oh, it's like it didn't happen in the episode. They make these interesting end credit choices with the music too, where it's like music that doesn't happen in the
Mm.
episode, but like alludes to characters, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But again, that wasn't even in the episode, and that was like literally a track from season 1 dropped into the credits. Um, yeah, so I see with that what you're saying, and I agree.
There was a part at the beginning where the Andor theme did play, but underneath it was the boop, 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 boop. And I think that's maybe what I'm responding to, is that loop of a percussive drive. Yeah. Well, and then here's a counter example, or here's a counter opinion. Sam says, that's how I felt about most of the season 1 music. It felt very generic TV music to me, but that could be because the style of it made it hard for me to grasp onto any theme. And I have to say, when I listened to this season 1 soundtrack without the TV show in front of me, I also thought it sounded whatever. But for me, seeing it on screen, the marriage of that worked really, really well. Like, so that, like, season 1, but that, I feel I'm lukewarm about Nicholas Bertel in general, but I do think Bertel and Tony Gilroy in season 1 really collaborated to do something super tailored to the show, even though there were some,
Yeah. No, exactly.
Chuck
Exactly.
says,
So
is
we
the
have
season
this
2 action music more Borny than season 1?
Borny.
Oh, Andor's
Not
showrunner
that
Tony
kind of
Gilroy was
Borny.
screenwriter on the Bourne movies. I didn't know that.
It's got some more actiony
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, it does feel a little bit more like that, I would say. I would argue.
Yeah.
And then it kind of is trying to mix in like these grandiose themes.
Matthew says the beginning of episode 1 is great with it starting quiet with no music, which really raised the tension. And that's also a thing. Like, there also was there were a lot of good choices too. Like a lot of moments without music that worked really well to build tension. And then also, effective use of the themes and like the Dedra's ISB theme and Mon Mothma's kind of intrigue theme. There was good stuff too, for sure.
Which outweighs. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Should we jump into some examples, maybe?
Yeah. Do we want to? Do we want to go thematically here? There's so much. Thematically here by episode, by
Ooh, that's a good
random,
question.
draw the hat, jump around. Because we could spend a good time just talking about Chandrillin music here, like anything associated
That's
with
true.
that, for example.
Man, it's really tough with 3 episodes at a time because then the episodes run together.
Right.
I like the idea of going by themes instead of by episodes, and I also like the idea of kind of starting with. I think the diegetic. We're so excited about the diegetic music, we might as
Yeah.
well
Start with that.
immediately start with diegetic things.
I think that's a good choice. And Justin, why don't you
But I
lead us
also like
off?
Justin's idea. Like, do we do just the Chandrillin ones first and then break out, or I don't really.
I'd say so many of the diegetic things happen on Chandrilla, and that doesn't mean they're Chandrillan, but there's the party on Chandrilla, and then there's like whatever traditional music they were playing live.
Right. Right. And then there's the wedding ceremony itself.
Right.
There's,
Oh yeah.
there's
that's
the
right.
there's the pre-party in episode 1,
Mhm.
where that happens, kind of thing. Well, let's start with the party music. Why not?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's the 2 examples I made, so it works out. I can get these out of the way. It's the 2 examples I made. One of the coolest things about the musical choices, I think personally, about the musical choices of Andor has been this like EDM hit that's been like across the galaxy in a way. And so that
Yamos.
like kind of makes you think like, hey, so this kind of music exists within the Star Wars universe. This aesthetic exists. So now we're getting a kind of like an extra play on what other people are doing with it, so the first time we hear any kind of like techno, I'm gonna use the archaic term of techno, because there's so many different genres actually within the electronic music universe, dance music universe. It was the episode 1 right at the end where they have that kind of pre-party happening, and what's Luthen's assistant's name? What's her name again?
Clea, who
She's like,
oh,
I've
I
been
love her.
scrubbing. I know she's
Like
so over
Magenta
it.
in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, she's just so over it. She's like, scrubbing frequencies all day. I need a drink, and she just like ditches Luthen, and she goes into this party, and this like kind of upbeat, weird like almost electro swing. Caravan Palace, if you're familiar with that group, kind of thing is playing in the background. Here's my little remake of it. No, hold on. I'm gonna get us all demonetized. I'm gonna accidentally. This is just playing in the background of this whole conversation.
Rasputin, the Russian.
Right? Yeah. And and then there's some variation. It kind of goes into like a little halftime, dum dum, ka, dum, dum, ka, kind of thing in the background, and chords and stuff. But that's the
That's
idea.
really
It's
cool,
just,
Justin. How did you make
the
that?
theme. There's
What instrument did you make it on?
I
What
made
gear?
it on a couple things. The chords are on this. They're strings, I think, in the actual soundtrack. I think they're like kind of not. They're not pizzicato, but they're kind of dun, 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 kind of
It
a
sounded kind of
sound.
like
So that
accordion.
yeah, it was also like a little bit like at the same time. So that was a synthesizer. Everything I made on these synthesizers, but the beat was on a drum machine. Um, Played together, kind of a thing. I just recorded all this because I had to take apart stuff earlier, so I couldn't play it back live.
Can I point
But
something
that's
out about the
yeah,
harmony?
yeah.
Okay. So first of all, it does sound like that Eurythmic song or whatever.
A little bit, yeah.
But also, what we're doing here is like F minor being 1, D flat major being 6, but then if you were to add a 7th to it, okay, never mind. But and then a 5. So it's kind of doing a 1-4-5. It's not 4, but it sounds like 1-4. It's like 1-6-5. Because what would 4 be?
B flat minor, right?
Right. So okay, it's related. The 6, the D flat major, is related to the 4, which would be a B flat. And so one could argue that it's the same chord progression as 1-4-5.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I was gonna say I
any
thought it was a
any-
1-4. I thought it was 1-4-5, but yeah.
Any jazz professor will tell you that you can basically interchange those two.
Yeah,
chords
exactly.
functionally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because
exactly.
what are they both? Are they both predominants? Are they both considered predominant chords?
Subdominant.
So that's what I meant. Sorry, subdominant chords. Yeah, I think they are right.
Yeah.
6 and 4 are
Well-
both subdominant.
well,
so
this-
they function in the same way.
Yeah. So, that what's cool about that is if we go to the Mon Mothma's theme or whatever. Whatever, I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's kind of sounds like doing the same chord progression as Mon Mothma's theme, which we also hear in and out in that episode.
This
I
is
also
just
think
like
while they
clone
have the
Mon
same
Mothma's theme.
general function, the difference between the 6 and the 4 is that I mean the 4 kind of like has a strong feeling of a tonic note to itself, and using the 6 removes that B flat so that you just have the ones on top, which helps you have this kind of unsettled, sneaky, moving feeling. So while they do have the same function, they don't have the same flavor, maybe.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of this mixing with the Mon Mothma theme, and the idea that because they're similar enough, they can be mixed and matched.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, can you remind me exactly what's happening when this music kicks in?
It's we are kind of checking in on a whole bunch of different characters at like night 1 of the 3-day wedding part. It's like party number 1 kind of a thing. So
and it's right before Perrin and Davo have their convo.
Right. So Skulden and Perrin are like, "Oh, do you think the kids will make it?" And Perrin's like, Lita's gonna slap him. He's gonna kill your son," kind of a thing, if he doesn't step up. We get Clara and Vel. Right? They realize they're both on the same place, kind of a thing, and they're both working differently. With that terrible burn from Clara, insinuating that, or what is it, that Cinta and her are no longer a thing, right?
Well, they haven't been allowed to see each other, so
They haven't been
They've
allowed
been
to see
kept
each other,
apart
something like that.
By Luther.
Well, because
That's what
it's
they're
like the
saying.
relationship can't exist, kind of a thing, right? Because
Right.
they're all working in different capacities. And then Tay Taya's talking to Mon and saying, "I need to talk to you about stuff."
I just wanted to make a little grander observation around that, which in terms of Luthen's like approach to his place in the rebellion, and I find it kind of interesting now that I'm kind of just formulating these thoughts at the moment. But like Luthen had that big, like beautiful monologue in season 1, where he basically goes on about that he's given up his own his own focus on his own life, his own personal life, his loves, his dreams, etc. And the only thing he cares about is succeeding and building a better future for like the galaxy through the rebellion. It's interesting, as the leader. I think if I didn't misremember this, that Cinta being separated from her partner. I'm sorry, what was the partner's name?
You mean Cinta?
Cinta, the character.
Cinta and Val.
Sister of
Val.
Val.
Right, Val. Yeah, Val being separated. My understanding is like Luthen stationed them separately, right? Like that was like what they alluded to, like oh we can't, and which is so interesting. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's like when we see the actual Star Wars, the saga movies, there's like a strong focus on interpersonal relationships and how those interpersonal relationships actually contribute to the success of the main characters throughout the saga. And Luthen is like, his philosophy is like counter to that. Like, nope, this is like, we're fighting, and it doesn't matter who you want to be with. It doesn't matter that you're friends with this person. It doesn't matter what I want out of my personal life. It's the only thing I know right now is fighting the enemy. It's very interesting that his approach is so different from the classic heroes of the original Star Wars saga, which is like, no, friendship is all we care about, like, or not all we care about, but that friendship is like what builds our bonds. Luke goes out of his way to forgoes his Jedi training to go off and save his friends, like, and the reason why the reason why the rebellion succeeds in many ways is because Luke chooses his love over his father in many ways. He chooses to love his father instead of just defeat him at the there's a theme there that I think is running counter with Luthen's kind of theme of how he thinks he'll get success. I'm curious if this show is gonna, I mean, in many ways I don't think it will, but because that we basically need to end this show where Andor picks up. But yeah, it was just something I thought might be worth noting is he's got a very different approach to the ultimate like famous heroes of the rebellion, in that he kind of like in the Star Wars movies, Cinta and Val would just be like, experiencing their own relationship while stationed in the same place, and also, you know what I mean? Like that's how that would shake out in the movies. Like nobody would be like, nope, you need to be apart. Don't worry about your relationship. I don't care about your relationship. You guys need to go fight the enemy.
But you see, in the second episode of that, they would, for the story of the plot, they would be apart. So here's season 2 where they are. I'm just
right. Yeah. It's true. But yeah, it's just
separate the characters.
I think there's a point. I think that the end of episode 3 of Andor, season 2, is a point on the kind of like Luthen side of the thing, and a point, or like a point towards like detachment, and a point towards friendship. So Cassian hears that something weird is going on the planet with his friends, and immediately flies there to save them, thankfully, because he did in fact save them. However, the only reason that they weren't able to escape on time is because Will went to go have a final goodbye with his girlfriend. And if he hadn't done that, they would all just be on speeders leading. And Brasso would not have died.
That's so true.
Yep.
The only reason Brasso had to die was because he went to go look for Will. And the only reason he went to look for Will was because he cared about him. He honestly should have just stayed where he was, stuck with the plan, and then Will would have joined them. And then the lieutenant wouldn't have tried to assault Bix, because Brasso it wouldn't have been just the lieutenant and Bix in the room. So on that note, like, sometimes, I mean, it's kind of that eternal paradoxical question of Sometimes detachment and following the rules and sticking with the plan over everything else is great, and they support that. And then at the same time, Cassian breaking the rules and just flying a TIE fighter in and probably blowing. I mean, Luthen's going to be livid when he finds out. Is also great. So it's an unfortunate and constant part of life to wonder about.
Indeed. We have Icarus quoting from Luthen's speech in the comments.
So what do I say?
Maybe it's premature to bring this up, but I definitely want to talk about the wedding guests' reaction, or I should say their differing reaction at a wedding in which traditional music is being presented to them, and then once the DJ kicks in the music that all the kids are actually listening to, and how everybody just like amps up. And as a practitioner of traditional music and a studier of like traditional music that's not necessarily mine, I've always observed that if I go to another country and I'm like sitting there and I'm like learning all the traditional music, like all the younger generation, when they really get amped is when they're actually listening to like what's on the radio, or like I mean it's not the radio these days, but like it was just an interesting moment where you're seeing this beautiful pristine version of like what you assume is like very old traditional Chandrilan music display, and everyone's very like, okay, yep, this is very beautiful, it's very nice, okay, but can we just get drunk and listen to some techno, please? And that music is hypothetically like from somewhere else in the galaxy, which is like such an interesting commentary on just like cross-cultural and like an interconnected galaxy. Whereas like what everybody really wants to listen to is like the dissemination of like pop music coming from elsewhere in many ways,
Though also the music that they play for the first dance, it also might not be Chandrilan. It might just be classical.
Could be,
right? From also anywhere.
I feel like it was implied though that it was Chandrilan, like traditional, but we almost traditional. Here's the dance. Here's the traditional dance of the youth.
Right, but like a traditional wedding music here is like Mendelssohn, so like that's not American,
Right, well, that's a different conversation. That's a whole different.
Well, it depends, right? Like, I would probably say, like within that context. I mean, I guess the thing is, we don't really know about like some of the, quote unquote classical traditional, art forms or music forms that. I mean, the reason why we listen to classical music and European classical music is because of colonialism, right? And it's in the United States, and that's because that's pervasive. Like there's a Western chauvinistic like hierarchy of like Western classical music is like the ultimate classy music, and that even when you're not sitting in like the Italian countryside, you're still going to listen to like the composers of Italian composers. But we don't know if that social dynamic exists, and is there like a chorus or an Eldoranian like classical music tradition that like wherever you go throughout the galaxy, like everyone's like, yeah, we can listen to our own music, but what we really need to practice is how to play this instrument from Alderaan, because that's the actual high society instrument. You know what I mean? Like there's not like like Western classical violin is viewed in many ways on this plateau, or above like other styles of instrument learning throughout planet Earth. I'm curious if there's like a parallel in the Star Wars galaxy. Is there a style of music that like some colonial force like created, and like everybody else respects that more than everybody else's classical music? It's an interesting idea, right? So context clues would tell me that what we're listening to in that moment is Chandrilan, because we don't have that like extra context. But yeah, it could be like they're just playing instruments that you find everywhere in the galaxy because some like dominant culture decided to like just like tell everybody that this is like the most it's sophisticated tradition of music that exists. So.
I feel like the Chandrilans would be the dominant culture on that planet, though, kind of a thing. So it is theirs. Right. So that's with the context clues.
It reminds me of going to like a Scottish wedding and everyone's in like kilts and there's like a bagpipe pipe player, you know? Like it kind of
What
reminds me of that kind of thing.
I was gonna say, it's like you got the religious ceremony, you got the religious music. I used to do Catholic weddings all the time, and yeah, we would play a couple like classical tunes and stuff like that, but a lot of it was like Catholic hymns. And then you'd go to the party, and that's where you're right, that's where the DJ came out. It's like we were just listening to 4-part harmony and singing monotonous hymns together, and then now we're doing the Macarena and and the electric
Yeah,
slide
yeah,
at
yeah.
the DJ party kind of a thing. So I really felt like that. Well, not only that, but aren't they saying like they don't do these traditions very much anymore on Chandrila? So it's trendy now to get back into the old stuff. So this is like the first awkward attempt to do the 3-day classical traditional Chandrilan wedding, where you do the wedding ceremony with these like pseudo the outfits, the costumes in this show are just so good. I'm sorry, but the wedding outfits, her dress, the kind of I feel like I was looking at like a amalgamation of like Japanese and Scandinavian culture for some reason, for that whole ceremony, because you get the stick, the big boom, and the rattle sound. James, you don't have a big rattly stick around the house,
I
do
do.
you?
I do.
I was gonna say, do
One
you?
second, I'll be
Ready,
back.
go.
I'll go get my rattly stick. 1 second.
Yes, I knew it. You have that, and this is just the wedding set. You also have, I'm pretty sure, it was singing bowls being played. It was this kind of like. This was the dance. I'm talking about the ceremony.
I have
Do
a
you
small
picture of the
rattly stick.
ceremony?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Here's my small rattly
Yeah.
stick.
Okay, there's a lot. I want to hear Christina's thoughts. Christina's been sitting
Okay.
quietly.
Sorry.
Oh.
Oh,
Like
okay. You
the
looked like you
outfit
had something.
stuff, or...
No, about the
Oh, well, it's
the
because
classical
I
music
was
of it
Justin
all.
was just talking about that, and I was like, oh, actually, I do follow like haute couture, and so I was like, oh, I think I like could even name like which designers Mon's and her and Leia's daughter's dresses were probably inspired by in terms of like the 2023 and 2024 seasons. And then, but I'm not like super certain, so I'm not going to name any names. But I do feel like they were kind of a mix of. There is an Asian designer for sure who I think does that cool thing where they drip the veil and then it like wrinkles and pops out, or what do you call that? Pleats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just like looking at pretty things, but I do not know the vocabulary to describe them.
That's
Um,
okay.
but
I meant about the
yeah,
classical
no, I think
music.
that in a way, maybe the music wasn't so exciting in this episode because the visuals were stunning. There was so much to look at.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. So yeah.
So, okay. Arcvon says, I read it as probably traditional, the first dance music, since it was very formal, almost procedural dance that accompanied it. Yeah, I can see that. The thing is, okay, the music in that, I could see, okay, I'm polluted by having done so many wedding gigs. I could see a possibility where it is a traditional song, but just whatever trio they could hire, like maybe that song doesn't have to be played by those instruments or something. Like
Interesting.
I'm guessing that there are I'm gonna guess that there are classical music traditions that go beyond single planets, that are kind of probably more specialized ones, but then also probably ones that like they share with Alderaan and some other places where they care about high society stuff. And also the song was kind of it was like a 6/8 kind of, in ballet class, there's the different things that the pianist plays and they accompany different sets of movements and they have to be certain meters for the certain movements and the combinations. But a lot of different like Chopin waltzes can fit that. And as long as you have symmetrical like phrase lengths and stuff like that, you could put several things in a ballet class. So like I think several things could have fit this dance perhaps, which is sorry. And then same. And then there's like a B part later, which is like,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, I love there was like a 4/5 vamp that was very poppy to me. It felt like do 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 do. I remember being like, that wouldn't happen in most in most classical music I've heard. I mean, I guess the question is, it begs the question that's like, okay, well, there's still like a cultural, there's still cultural and very specific cultural echoes that even embodies the Western classical tradition, right? Like people are still drawing from either folk traditions or cultural sounds to create Western like. So I'm like, I would just love to know if that's the case, if this is like potentially like instruments that exist outside of a particular like folk tradition, and maybe they're even playing a folk song, or they're just playing some type of classical music that like fits the meter that they need. Where does that music come from, right? Like what's the history behind that classical tradition, and like, yeah, and because that does indicate a hierarchy of other cultural elements, right? Like Western classical music is from a very specific geographical region that the reason why it's been so ubiquitous in many ways is because of the colonial history of people coming out of that geographical region, right? So that's interesting to me. Like, what did Eldor, if that's something that's maybe shared between high society areas and like Eldoran, et cetera, like what did those particular geographical areas of the galaxy do to like gain that status, and therefore their music or their traditions have that status?
I want to highlight a couple related comments. Samantha Tripp says on colonialism, but not classical. The Imperial March is definitely colonial. It's on both Lothal and Corellia. Yeah, check out her work on the Imperial
And
March.
that's another interesting thing, right? Like when you think about some of like the military marches of like Nazi Germany or something like that, like a lot of those, there's like very specific cultural like highlighting that like fascist regimes do. Like they pick like only German music, like things that are like born out of German composers or something like that. Like I'm very curious, like what did the imperial select as being like their music that like because yeah, I think the cultural component, I mean sometimes they kind of touch on it within Star Wars of like who is on the outside and who's not, within the I don't even know the answer to any of these questions, but it's kind of interesting to me. Like, what about that makes that imperial music that, like, obviously the Empire wanted to highlight whoever made that music and only those people, right? Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a great question and thing to wonder about, and I realize that might be what you were trying to ask me about earlier, Xanthi, when I talked about the fashion, which is like, of course, I'm gonna drop the name. We all know. Like what would Thrawn think about this? Because his great skill
Yeah,
We
is
did it.
sure.
We did
yeah,
it. How
like
long did it
and
take
the
us? It was an
whole time we
hour,
were watching this,
hour and 5
yeah,
minutes. We got it.
I need
We
Zog's
got it.
Thrawn to make a commentary of all of Andor and talk about what he sees because it would be so fascinating because the way that I mean to me what I see when I watch particularly on Shrendrilla, is we have the aristocratic society of the Empire. We have, I think the Shrendrillan stuff really harkens to French society music, but I'm gonna immediately connect that to English music as well, and then I feel like I can't exclude the Spanish. But
It has a
and I point that out
courtly feel
because
to it, like Courants and
yeah,
like
court
like
music, not
suites
music of the
and
people,
right.
music of the court.
Hmm.
Yeah. music that proves whether or not you do know the dances and whether you were taught them and whether you're
Yeah, it's
attending the
like cotillion
class.
and stuff.
Exactly. And I think that the like it's very repetitive. It's very square, meaning predictable. It lands home constantly. It never deviates, and that is super in line with the imperial code, with what it means to be a good citizen of the empire. And it follow yeah, so I guess I'm just pointing out that I think what Thrawn would see is that the goal of being, if you're a good imperial citizen, you're going to try to prove how by the book and clear, and everything is very clear, and there's no confusion, and there's a little bit of fun, but it's very light, and there's nothing to worry about. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I that's what I see when I
Hmm.
analyze the music combined with a lot of other things. And I note that I don't know, but okay, so that's what I see about the court music in the wedding ceremony. But then we transition to the after party when the disco droid comes in. And that was very different. What I saw in that was circles. The movements were very like one performer was kind of doing a circle thing, but then they were all doing circles in
Hmm.
that. So it was this concentric circle situation, and the music was you know, EDM, which can very much be compared to a circle. It had a very circly feel, and so I don't know. This
Loopy.
I bet that also has something to do with the Chandrilan culture.
I mean, oh yeah. Have you ever been to a bat
That's cool.
mitzvah?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Only once.
Mhm. I want to highlight this comment too from Arik Fonts. It's very much a case of conservative, cultural, religious stuff coming back into fashion under fascism. And in the first episode, I think Mon Mothma says, everything old is new again. And it's like all the young
Mm-hmm.
people want to be trad wives now, type of thing. We're keeping the birth rate up by marrying 13-year-olds.
Right.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I think this it's such a great writing choice to have this occur, and it's still really
Agreed.
creepy.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it echoes. Yeah. I think my whole spiel earlier was just kind of like That's why I'm like the empire doesn't oftentimes with fascistic. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It's fascism.
Fascist.
Yeah, fascist. There you go. You can just use that one. Regimes often cling to a specific cultural component, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
whether it be and the empire doesn't really have like a particular cultural tie. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost its own thing. Or maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like you're buying into this idea that almost doesn't clash with individualized culture, and that's kind of the whole point, right? Is like you're not your own planet, you're under the empire. You're not your own culture, you're under the empire, um, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean that's what ultimately fascism creates is that it distorts and it perverts a culture into a version that's unrecognizable from its actual roots, right? That's what fascism does. It actually impersonalizes everybody, right? Um, so interesting. I just want to say about
I want
that
to
the traditional music. There's like a person playing, and the instrument choice that they chose for the percussionist is just like a straight ahead glockenspiel. Like it's just a glockenspiel sound. It's like they didn't like change it. It's just, I mean, the instrument being played isn't a glockenspiel, but it certainly sounds like a glockenspiel. So, I also like this guy on the right, the percussionist on the right. There is like when one of the if you go and watch it again, I think the actor playing that instrument like kind of doesn't really end the song like very definitively. It almost looked like he was like, "Oh wait, do we have another measure to go or something like when and he stops playing." I notice as a musician that like the way that he ends the song is like it's almost like, "Oh
I
shit!" Like the track stopped playing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I th-
I
I th-
mean,
I think Oh no, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna to agree with that. One of the things I like about this scene and the music is that it's all played incredibly awkwardly. None of it's
Right.
quantized. It's all very
Right.
like badly played, and it speaks to going into like these reaching back to the old these cultures that have grown out of it and are so out of touch with their own traditions but are trying to go back.
Right.
It's like they learned the song last night because they're like, oh shit, that's right, we got to play the first dance on these instruments
That's
that
right.
nobody plays anymore. You know what I mean? It's like they only appear at these weddings that we haven't seen for decades. So it's like very much like, oh right, yeah, okay, now this is the end, which is why it's so square and why it's so like there's like
Yeah.
there's like a weird thing with how the player is playing it. It's just not quite in time. No one is quite in time, which is kind of just fun.
That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
interesting.
And that goes back to, it kind of like ties to like when Mon and Val are like heading up the mountainside and she's kind of explaining what's going to happen when they get up there. It's just like a classic version of someone being like, yeah, this is what's gonna. We're gonna go up there. There's gonna be like a choir of children singing for
Hmm.
us, and it's like not no one's really buying into this thing, but they're just kind of going through the motions. I mean, it's almost like, you know,
Mm.
Yeah, then that's
It's
why I
not
feel
very
like throughout this
heartfelt.
whole, yeah, this whole wedding, even the part before all this with the actual wedding, was it the actual wedding ceremony where they're all doing like a circle around the person, then the knife cut, and she cuts her hair. Everyone's got
right?
these gorgeous outfits
Padawan
on that
braid.
are, yeah, the Padawan braid thing. What I was trying to show earlier, I think, was like there's like a singing bowl in the background, so you're seeing like this multi layers of the Chandrilan culture from its like ancient roots to like the classical court period of where these kind of like wedding traditions start, like have
Mm-hmm.
evolved into, and then modern culture, just play the DJ music, kind of a thing.
Right, right.
Mhm. I wanted
I can.
to. There was an idea about the colonial. Oh, sorry. Uh, There
No,
was an
go
idea
ahead.
about the colonialism that I wanted to note that, like, when I was talking about court music, mentioning that I specifically associate what we hear here as being French or maybe a little bit British. The reason I even think that is because those countries were the ones who kind of dominated that historical time, and there probably were really similar dances and songs happening in other countries, in like what's currently Czech Republic, and
Mm-hmm.
like what we would call folk music would have maybe been court music in those places, but they weren't the places that did the colonializing.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I guess I'm just pointing out that the music that, in the idea that the victors write history, they also choose which music becomes popular and which music doesn't become popular, and that's
Yeah.
a big truth to note.
It's so poignant. Like there's systems of class and structure within every individualized culture or society, and like I think about this with Indian classical music a lot. Like Indian classical music within Indian culture is actually something that is, usually experienced and studied and practiced by like the upper castes of Indian society classically, right? Like playing tabla, playing sitar is court music during, and it was during, the reign of the Persian Empire. This was all court music. It's all regal music. Oftentimes, non Indian musicians will lump Indian classical music, or even especially from a percussion standpoint, as being like, oh, this is like this like interesting exotic drum over here that I can then like pair it with like this other drum that I also play over here, and it's like, but they that maybe like, I'll often see like fusion musicians like put tabla with like congas and djembe, but like the people in the rungs of society that play djembe and congas would be vastly different than the people that have access to studying tabla in India, right? But from a non-Western perspective, there is a hierarchy that exists above non-Western cultures that kind of like boils them all down to being, well, just non-Western, right? So therefore it's like this exotic drum that I play. And I'm not endorsing that mindset, but I've seen it present where people kind of don't even investigate the actual social hierarchies that exist within the cultures that they're like utilizing, you know?
Yeah. Similar thing happens with Cambodian music. Like people will see like Apsara dancing and like the Cambodian like Pian ensemble be like, oh, we're watching like Cambodian folk music. And I'm like, this is actually classical music and classical dance. Like,
Right. That's right. Yeah.
it's more like ballet than like the electric slide.
Yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk meta stuff for just a moment for those watching who aren't familiar with how live music scenes are filmed on shows and TV. So what probably happened for this was they probably hired real musicians who play things similar to what we see on screen, like a harpist, percussionist, and two percussionists, I guess. What's the instrument on the left, do you think, James?
Yeah,
Like
so
bells or
on
something?
screen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well, this might be, let's see. I mean, this is not a percussion instrument that resembles
Anything.
anything that you would see, but I mean, it looks like it's a set of like some type of metallic bells, like almost like a sideways version of like Almglocken or something like that, you know.
Okay.
But I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, that's the instrument that is being portrayed by like the glockenspiel sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. So yeah, they would have hired real musicians who play something similar to these instruments, and then separately, before shooting this, they would have recorded the sound that we're hearing. Because I don't think this doesn't sound like live on set sound. And like James said, there's like a part where the glockenspiel player hits a note, but we don't hear the note, which
Well,
is
actually,
prone to
I'm not
happen.
sure if that's exact. It's not. It's not that. Sorry, it wasn't. It wasn't a whiff and a miss. You know, it was like literally like the music stopped and the musicians indeed stopped, but that particular musician did not seem ready to stop. It's almost like when
Oh,
you're
I see.
in
I
a
see.
band and you haven't rehearsed very well and you're about to hit the next note and you're like, oh, I guess we stopped. Okay, cool. You
Yeah,
know?
okay.
That's
Okay.
what it
Okay.
felt like. You know.
Okay. So then they probably played it on speakers on set, and then they were playing along with it, but not probably hitting the right notes because they had to memorize it, just so that they could be synced up. Mistakes probably happened, but we probably can't tell. And yeah, that's how that works. It's called sidelining, is when musicians go on camera and they play along, but their sound isn't used because it was pre-recorded in the studio.
Okay, can I tell a quick story that I think might be interesting to folks? Okay, so I got a gig one time to play at this like FX pilot, to be a musician on screen, playing a marimba for a scene that was part of this show called, I think the show was called Cake. You could probably find it on FX streaming service or whatever. And there's this scene where this like main character is like at a yoga studio and she's like trying to find her like inner zen, you know, and she keeps getting distracted by the world around her as she's trying to find her center, right? And it's a white blonde woman, and basically the culmination is that she listens to the Apple ringtone, which is like dun 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 dun, that the old Apple ringtone, the marimba ringtone, okay?
Yep.
And instead of being distracted by it, she just incorporates it into her meditation, and then she imagines a marimba ensemble jamming out to this
To this high tone.
to the intro. Okay, so my task, and I was hired to be a marimbist on set for this scene, and my task was just to learn that ringtone on marimba. Okay, great, awesome. So I show up to set, and I didn't know that they had a remix of the marimba that they've added, where they've added a beat under it, of course, right? Okay.
Oh no, I know exactly where that beat probably is.
Yeah, and here's the challenging thing is because a couple years ago I actually put a survey on one of my Instagram stories because this was such a wild experience for me because I have heard where beat one is in a very specific place with
Have we
this
talked about this,
ringtone.
James? I feel like
We
we may
definitely
have.
have talked.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Have I
because I have
talked about it
opinions on
on-
this too.
Have I talked about it
Okay.
on stream? Okay,
I don't think so. I
potentially
think
I've
we
talked.
probably texted about it because I.
Yes,
had
we
a-
have. So here's the issue, guys. Okay, is that essentially essentially I have been listening to that ringtone my whole life and hearing one in a place that I guess is different from where literally maybe 90% of everybody else hears this ringtone. And when they added the beat to it on set, it would throw me off from performing it literally every time. I was like playing it and all of a sudden the beat kicked in and I was supposed to jump in right on one and I had to re-scramble my rhythmic brain to shift it over literally an eighth note, okay? And turned out it didn't matter because I think I'm on screen for maybe 2.5 milliseconds or something like that. The way they cut it is I was there all day on set in this white outfit. Classic Hollywood situation where you spend all day, you spend hours practicing something, and then when you get on set, you're either don't make the show or you're barely in it. You would not recognize me if you watch this show. Anyway, long story short, they blast the track over and we're just miming along to it on part of the show, and I wasn't doing a very good job because every time they kicked the beat in, I was I got off a beat. It was kind of a funny thing. So,
I feel for you.
there's a little.
Let me also just spread my propaganda here. Is this how,
Yeah.
how I hear it?
So, okay, that's so funny. Everyone hears it as okay, so okay,
no,
so
Xanthi,
here's the
that's wrong.
guys. So this is
That's
the
so
more
wrong, Xanthi.
part, okay? Yeah.
Okay,
So
wrong
here's the
show.
classic thing, okay? Here's the thing. Here it is. No, not this one. It's this one.
No.
It's this one, okay? It's this. No, it's
Nope.
not that one. It's called opening, right? It's called opening, right? Here it is.
That's
Right? Everyone knows this ringtone, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
It
This is where I hear
obviously
the
is
beat, okay? Here's my beat, right? 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, every
1,
drummer
2, 3, 4.
hears
1,
it.
2. Here's how everyone else hears it.
1, 2, 3.
1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hear it.
Wait, keep playing
1,
it
2,
because
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Keep playing it.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 2, 2. That's
the
so
3/8
funny
is
you
wrong.
hear
It's
that
more,
way.
it's more like 6, 7.
Anyway,
okay.
just a
Never.
little
Anyway, okay.
digression.
Let's get back to
Camp on
Andor.
this.
we
I 100%
can't.
hear that the way James hears it.
You hear it? Because
I mean,
it
I hear
starts
it-
there.
I
It
hear it
starts there. It
both
starts
ways.
as
No, it's
dig it
obviously an
da
upbeat.
da 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 dig it da 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 da. I'm just hipper
Clearly
than everybody
syncopated.
else. Okay, that's the okay. That's the deal. So Justin,
Okay.
you're strangely quiet on this. Where do you
Let's
hear
go
it?
back. Let's talk about the music.
Like a
the diegetic music.
Yeah,
It's
just
either
like
a pickup. It's either a pickup.
It's-
It's either a pickup into beat one, or it's an eighth note after. So it's either it's either one or the other. See, I
I
can't
see.
even do it as you do. I hear it as boom.
Yeah. That's where everybody else hears it, man. Everybody's on that page except for me, I guess, and Christina. Thanks, Christina. I feel seen.
Okay, so the
Heard.
diegetic music in Andor.
Can I play one last example and
Yes,
then we can
please.
exit? Unless we have more on Chandrila.
Please do.
Well, the only other thing I was able to make, I went with the techno theme, was the ending remix, a little bit of the ending remix of the final scene of season 2, episode 3. We're just gonna keep seeing season 3 instead of episode, because I really loved that it was a very weird ending, because like the techno, this remix dance track overtakes a really, really sad scene with Brasso dying
Yeah.
and goes into Mon, who's now drunk, knowing that everything is falling apart around her, all sorts of things are happening, and she's stuck at this wedding, her own daughter's wedding, who she cannot connect with. Just kind of loses it and is doing the kind of like Florence and Machine dance kind of a thing.
Yes.
Like waving around with all the you said circles, Christina. Everyone's dancing in circles and waving their arms around in circles, and we get this like straight up EDM drop, which is just so funny to me. And everyone shouts "Diamo!" Right? It is wild, and that just ends the whole episode. And like Cassian and Bix and Will are flying off. We just lost Brasso. It also reminds me that they left B behind, and I think that's a crime. And I hope B comes back. Little B2 emo.
Oh,
They
did
leave
they?
him behind. Yes, they don't go. At least from what I could tell, unless
Yeah,
they
they
go
did.
back and
They
get him.
did.
That makes me
I
incredibly
think he'll
upset.
be happy playing with the children.
I think so
Because
too.
they need to make K2SO needs to make an appearance, and they can't have two droids in the show, you know.
Right. Well, I had a moment of like, oh my god, are they going to implant B2 emo into K2SO,
Oh,
and that's
right.
like where the sassy personality comes from, or no?
Oh, well, poor sweetie, he is.
Yeah, I love.
So,
B2
question for
and,
y'all
Yeah,
is Niamos okay? Do you think in universe? Do you think is that the name? Do you think that's the name of? I mean, I know it's a planet, but I think what I'm wondering is like, do you think like that particular song is called that with by Nicholas Britell as like the name of the track from before? And I mean, just like functionally, it was like used over that planet, right? But I'm curious, like they shout it in this episode, right?
Yeah.
Over the track. So I'm curious is like, do you think there's like an artist that like kind of like, you know, like maybe like the artist like Chicago or like the artist like or like the band, I don't know, what's another band that's like named after a city? Or even the band America, you know? Like
America,
do you think that like
Asia,
do you think
Europe.
in universe yeah, do you think like the name of the artist in universe is just like named Niamos? And
No,
like,
I think
so everybody-
Niamos
like,
is
it's like
more
a- it's
like
an
Is it a
it's like
party?
Miami.
Party
There's
city?
like they're going Miami
Yeah.
or like
Oh, okay,
because
I
it's
see.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
They're like, oh, we're like
Miami,
partying.
da,
We're partying like they do,
da,
like they
yeah.
party over in Brazil or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's
Another
funny.
possibility is that Niamos was like a paradise, and the word Niamos in some ancient language means like a beautiful place or like paradise, and has come to be. Yeah, I just point that out that it could also be like an ancient word that just means like
That's
beautiful
cool.
paradise or really fun time on beach. And
That's a good point, right?
It's
Yeah.
funny too, because if you go back to the first season version of this song and then this version of the song, they're very different. So it's like a clear. This could be like the Steve Aoki in universe Steve Aoki remix
My
of this popular tune that came out, and
Okay,
you all shout
that
Niamos during his version
Yes.
because you know
Yes.
that is what this is.
I was wondering about that.
Mhm.
You know, there's like that new Kendrick Lamar song that's called Luther, right?
Yeah.
And what's his name? It's named after Luther Vandross, like
Tequila,
you know,
yeah.
who
Yeah,
sang the
yeah,
sample. Who sang
exactly.
the sample?
I didn't even see your comment when I said the Miami thing. But yes.
Oh, that's fun.
It is totally like tequila.
Yeah.
Take Africa from Toto.
But like, you know, like what I mean is like the song. I was also curious. Is like I wonder if this is a remix collaborated with the original artist, or if this is like kind of like when like I mean the only example I can think of is like one that I don't necessarily want to endorse, but Kanye West's version of Better, Faster, Stronger. You know what I mean? Like where it's like it was a big hit as a Daft Punk song, but it's like being used by another artist, but it's like it is the same song, but it's not really a remix per se as it is a new
Interpolation.
song. Interpolation, that's the word, right? So I was wondering, I was like, is this an interpolation of Niamos, or
I
is
think
this
it is.
like you think so?
And also,
'Cause
I
it's
think,
like-
And also
Like
the
wild thoughts.
transitions between songs at this party, it sounds very like there is a like it sounds like DJ is handling transitions. So I feel like
Well, it's fun.
they're
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, like I feel like the DJ could have made this mix to use at parties.
Either
You mean the
that
AI teacher?
or this is either that or this is just one long extended track, because if you think about it, the party starts with the song coming in, the Niamo song coming in, and every time we go back to the party, it's the new remix with that little synthy kind of like thing happening. And then by the end of the episode, it slides back into transitioning to Niamo. So we've just been listening to the half-hour remix of this song
Yeah.
across this party. Unless
Justin,
Mon
I
got
have-
drunk in like four minutes.
I have your recording that you made a couple years ago of Niamos.
Let's hear it.
I have that too, yeah. This is what?
This is Justin. This is the Justin Scheid interpolation of Niamos.
Is it?
This is Scheidamos.
Justin's like being critical.
That's funny because you know what's funny. I was gonna mention is like your examples you've played on stream so far for us are like how do I say they're even more intricate in the end and exact than your previous work. You've only
It
gotten
evolves
more
over and over again.
devoted.
But what's funny is because I also have the recording that I sent you, and it sounds
better. I'm just kidding. That may have.
it sounds very different than what you just played.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe this is from someone else. Maybe I made that one. What the hell? Oh wait. I don't know.
Keep it going, Justin. Niamos!
Right?
We'll exit on that music. Okay, yeah, that might maybe.
I think that was
from-
your maybe
Okay,
that was your
probably.
version.
You know what? It was probably mine. It was probably my version.
I'm like, what did I send? Damn, I did
Justin's
get better.
like, wow, I sound really bad.
Like, wow, what happened?
No, it's
Okay,
just
well
me.
then my comment.
I apologize.
My comment stands that when Justin does it, it's way better.
It's true. Okay, yes, Matthew, it was the song that was played in the background of the brothel in season 1, episode 1. Indeed. Okay, so
More diegetic music.
yes, more diegetic music. Should we move off of Chandrilla?
Yeah. we
Any
should
more
talk about
Chandrilla?
this
Goodbye,
one episode.
Chandrilla.
Or so? Oh well, okay. Wait, there was the drums in the ceremony. We kind of already talked about that. Yeah. So there's
Yeah,
two
yeah,
more notable
big drums
ones.
go boom. No, nothing sophisticated there. So
Shaky drum.
Yeah. So there's the like lounging, getting ready to meet the mom music, and then there's also the Gorman horn, the Gorman Valley horn.
That whole
and the whole production. The
I was gonna
ad,
say
or
that
the
whole
whatever, the
projection.
Gorman.
I was
And
laughing.
there's Dedra listening to the opera music.
And
That's
Dead
right.
listening to opera. That's true. Yep.
Did you guys identify which opera track that is? Did anyone like watch a analysis where they found out? Because I tried really hard to identify which aria that was, because I had immediate guesses on what it was, and they were all very close, but not quite right, which made me wonder
Is
if
it-
he actually like recomposed.
What were they singing? What language was it?
What? I think it was Italian.
Okay, which is really.
What was
funny.
Justin gonna say though?
I was just gonna say, did they like use a actual classical aria in there? Like, is she listening to like does is Italian classical?
It
exist
sounds
within
a lot
story?
like two different Verdi arias. Like whenever Verdi does a prayer, that's exactly what they sound like. Like same kind of instrumentation vibe, same kind of orchestration situation, and it kind of sounded like she was singing the words I wrote down. I'm not great at understanding
It's so
syllables,
brief.
unfortunately, but it sounded like she was saying something like Io che vorremmo. That's kind of what it sounded like.
Wow.
But that is so it sounded a lot like Verdi's
Brindisi.
Tosca sings a beautiful
Mm.
aria, and also in his opera Don Carlo, the tragic queen has a really sad aria like that. And then Madame Butterfly during the really
Mm.
long time when she's slowly um, about to die. Uh, I could see it coming like a weird excerpt from there, maybe, but that would be Puccini. But I just wanted to point out it sounded a lot like Verdi Tosca. I asked ChatGPT, I told it everything I thought about the aria and asked if it could confirm anything about this, and it gave back to me that it was like, indeed, you are probably correct that it's a Verdi aria, probably from Tosca. And I was like, like but where are you getting support on this? But I couldn't find anything. But I highly recommend if you want to listen to any Maria Callas recordings of Verdi operas. They're beautiful. Or Verdi arias from his operas.
That's wild. It's so brief in
It
the
is wild.
episode that it's like,
Hmm.
C minor. Okay. Have to be on the hunt for that.
Yeah. Also, Shazam couldn't find it.
But it was so
Yeah, so it's
brief that maybe.
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
you think so,
Let's.
Christina, you think that it's like source music? You don't think it's you don't think it's just written for this episode?
So I think it's either real source music or it's written for this episode but sounds so similar to the source music that the composer may have been aware or even alluding to that vibe.
Mm.
Because it would be so fun to find a connection between Dedra and like a Verdi character. That would be so cool to be able to analyze. Um,
Yeah. To clarify, source music, whether it's Verdi or whether it's like a real world
ah,
or not, it's still called source music if it
Mhm.
is diegetic.
Yeah,
But
that's what I mean. It's just like
mm.
yeah, like you think they licensed something or like
my guess
interesting.
is that is newly composed and that is most likely in
Yeah.
Huttese.
Yeah, I would bet that they would do that.
a Huttese opera. I would pay for that, personally fund that
It's really
production.
funny.
It ain't over until the Hut Lady sings, man.
That would be
Um,
absolutely hilarious too, to find out that like the Hut traditional classical music is like opera.
Well, it would make sense
Maybe
because
it's Squid Lake.
they're a bunch of mobsters. It makes
Right.
it makes a lot of sense
And
because
there's
they're
just these-
basically they're basically Italians. Like
And
like
just Jabba the
They're-
Hutt on stage just singing this
Right.
gorgeous aria.
like yeah, like basically it's Pavarotti is probably a Hut in the Star Wars universe. There's like a Hut Pavarotti that only gained his success because like all of his family members are just like greedy mobsters that like got him on stage to the right people.
Yes.
Hut Roddy.
Oh, too funny.
That is
To the
so
cause.
awesome.
Yeah.
God, that would
Samantha
be
says,
God. Come on, somebody. Guillermo del Toro has already expressed that he wants to make the Hut crime movie, and that would be just such an icing on the cake if like all the music was like Puccini style opera, but like in Huttese. That would oh my God, I would oh my God, it'd be
my
amazing.
goodness.
Yeah, I like what
That would be
Samantha's trip is saying there.
Yeah. I suspect that it was a real opera on the temp score and the composer wrote what we actually have here. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitively
then in
a
that
Huttese.
case-
ChatGPT, make a Huttese opera. Justin, call me
Yeah, yeah.
regarding Huttese opera funding.
Well, in that case, if that was source music, then, or possibly, I want to know what they were listening to for the preparing dinner scene, because that got a little steamy. It's like she
did.
listens to opera on her own, but did Cyril in the relationship bring in the steamy, like smooth jazz?
I think so.
Kind of like
Yes.
Bachelor on a boat, 60s vibe.
I think Cyril has
Kinda
curated
thing.
his music collection very carefully.
Yes.
I could just imagine that's what he's listening to in his like Star Wars in universe AirPods, just like as he's doing data entry. He's just got the smoothest jazz on in the background and strings.
Yeah, the vibe is very important to Cyril.
What a
Well,
wild
it's
situation.
funny too because it's like it harkens to this like whole trend of like easy listening music from back in the day. There's these like exotica records. I don't know if you've ever anyone heard the
Like Buddha
label or
Bar,
the yeah, it's like
Pink
there was
Martini.
the tiki thing. Everyone was really into Hawaiian music in the 60s, and then at the same time like
Mhm.
there are these German composers creating
Oh,
light
Jesus
orchestra music.
Christ.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it, Ender, but you know, it's we'll type it. The finest. But it's yeah, so there's like this weird like uh radio music, like light radio music that was like it was popular music, but it was still like an orchestra kind of a thing.
Right.
Mhm.
I think of like anyone ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Oh yeah.
All that music is sourced from these
Yeah.
German light music composers. So it's like that almost in a weird way. It's like that exists within this
Ba-da-da.
universe.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right.
God, I love that show
Funny.
so much.
It's a great show.
I like the idea of Gangsta's Paradise and Hutchies. I think
Yeah,
there
there
could
is
be a good scene. I'd like to see that scene. It probably
there is
exists on the
some
internet already.
there is something similar in the Return of the Jedi, the Shakespeare adaptation, the audiobook.
Deep cut.
Um,
Nice.
What was the
yeah, so okay, so
music?
the Dedra Cyril music, it actually it didn't sound so. I thought for it, that it could be score. I do think that it probably was. They were playing it in the house, but it also
It was hard to tell.
It was hard to tell because it wasn't like obviously coming out of a source.
And what's funny too is that it's coming in the scenes. It's going from the Chandrilan wedding of like this ancient Chandrilan music, and then it goes into this music. I love when she's in the trying the different outfits that look exactly the same but in a different color, and everything's the same shade of white, and she gives a little smile, and you're just like, ooh, you gotta get a little shiver. Like she could tell that hurt her to do that. It's funny. I love their relationship so far. Although who knows? That could be a very, very horrible toxic relationship behind the scenes.
I enjoy that Cyril is training the other new grunts for his, his desk job, and he's also like painting like a picture of like, oh, like this is what could happen working at this job. You could like catch some.
You could
kind of,
change your
like,
life.
right. It was kind of like an interesting mirror to season 1 when he's being given that job. Yeah, and that's like his own his area of power that he has, right? That he enjoys to a certain extent, but like when he's in his home life, he like relinquishes some of that control, and he's like probably happy to do that, Yeah, quite fascinating. Quite fascinating. Some of the most interesting characters that have ever been written for the Star Wars universe ever. Yeah.
Were you
The
surprised?
music in that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, were you surprised, or what do you think is in store for those characters, or were you surprised to see them get together? I kind of forgot that Cyril wasn't he like following her in episode 1? He was kind of obsessed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
First, it was a stalking situation.
But she
Yeah.
like
But she was
she
kind of
like
into it.
she was into it, right? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the weird. That was the weird fucked up thing with
Because
the whole thing.
because he
like,
appreciated her,
right.
like he saw how capable she was.
Then he
And
saved her
she
in
is
the
now
end.
feeling like she's being demoted at work, right? Like she's feeling like she's been given this like shitty job, so that when she's home, she has this like ability to be like have power and have someone listen to her and appreciate her and like worship her, right? So I think there's definitely like that probably means a lot, and that the ability to like tell his mom, like
Yes.
like we're only gonna visit you, or and like be in your life.
I will
and bury
guarantee
me.
a certain amount of engagement
Yeah.
that is inversely proportional to, yeah.
The amount of
Amount of
anxiety that you give.
Yeah.
It's a really
enough.
cool. It's what I really love about the show is that this day to day life look we get into characters behind the scenes. It's like the joke of what people do on their day off. Like what was that old internet thread of rappers doing their laundry or something like that, and you see Snoop Dogg like doing his laundry, and you're like these people that we just like have one image of like doing day to day things that like the rest of us do. So here's Dedra, who just in the last season led this whole hunt for this character. A year later, still does not have the perp and is now getting like, okay, your hype is done now. It's like her one world that she still controls, yeah, is here, and poor Cyril still has no control in his life, except his job, kind of a thing. It's wild, you know.
Thanks,
Mm-hmm.
Ken. Yeah, I think there were, like everyone on the internet is posting about Cyril's laying on the bed, just
Oh, it's
So
so
many
um,
cute.
moods this episode.
yeah. And Ender told me that I don't know they read something about Tony Gilroy didn't originally want like that shot, like he hated that shot actually, but then he saw the light, like he understood and ultimately liked it. And that may have been the
Yeah.
actor's decision. It may have been what the actor chose to do. I'm not sure. But I
I
just
think
think,
that was a moment watching that shot is when I like paused and was just like, what is this show, man? Like I was like, I had a moment of just being like, what am I watching right now? Like, because I definitely out of body, like, I mean, I wouldn't question it. I wouldn't question anything I'm watching if it existed outside of the Star Wars universe. You know what I mean? Like I just wouldn't at all. But just the fact that I'm seeing that very personal series, it was just I had a moment where I was just like, "What is this?" I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, and then I laughed and continued and loved it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
there was another great bit of physicality, which is when Dedra squeezes his face. I was
Yes.
obsessed with that
yes,
part.
Well,
Oh.
that's what I mean. It's like this is her level of control, and Cyril, despite perhaps hoping that they're equals in this relationship, it's like he doesn't even have control in a weird way. But she puts up. I don't know. There's just I feel like there's still like this level of like what dom sub, dom sub
Yeah, I
relationship
I
kind
don't
of
think
think
going on here,
I
where
think
they
I
give each
think he
other
has
what.
control.
Uh, I'm curious to see where this goes, kind of a thing.
I don't think he wants a relationship where he's expected to make all of those decisions. I think he's happy to have someone else make them, but someone who does actually have his best interests at heart, as
Yeah.
opposed to his mother who has just like her strange interests at heart. Maybe
Hmm.
mm,
like he wants to be a follower, but like of a good leader.
He just
Maybe.
wants to abdicate control sometimes.
Hmm.
well, I mean,
Like
like
with
their whole
like with his job. Like he feels very good about doing his like role that some people may call insignificant, but he's like it's not insignificant. Like you can try really hard and you'll support
Hmm.
the people who are doing good things and find cabals of rebels.
What were you saying, James?
I was just gonna say, I mean, like their relationship started out with him like saving her life, right? Isn't that
Hmm.
like what happened in the
Yeah.
last season, right? So it's not like, I mean, there's like definitely there's definitely like a appreciation of value in the relationship. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like it's not like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
I think there's definitely mutual
Mhm.
respect.
Yeah,
Because why
yeah,
else would she care
Mhm.
right,
about helping him with his mom and everything? Like letting him
yeah,
move in or whatever. Like, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. Yeah, I thought that was very. I got to be honest, I was very touched in that moment when she like
Hmm.
lashes out at the mom.
me
I was
too.
like,
Mhm.
very much like, oh, that's like she cares about this dude because she could just be annoyed with this whole thing and be like, screw this relationship. I don't want to be a part of anything. But she's like, no, like this is my dude, and like and in her own way is like you're gonna be out of
Hmm.
our life. And it was kind of like a really touching, interesting, moment. So
Yep.
I liked when the mother said, "I'm so happy Cyril found someone that he with whom he can communicate." And both Cyril and Dedra are just like I felt like that was a nice moment for talking about how some people who think I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say. Like maybe one of you does know what I'm trying to say, but I thought that was a poignant moment talking about people's different communication styles and how the mother I think was kind of more like throwing that as a judgy comment
Yeah.
towards Cyril, and and Dedra, yeah, like I felt like it was a nice. I felt like it was relevant to our current social situations.
Definitely. That comment was, yeah, that one really hit me. It's like, so glad that my son found someone who can put up with how weird he is, or what, whatever.
Hmm. A
And
subversively not supportive comment.
yeah, like
Right.
I can't believe you can put up with Cyril, almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more
Cyril, I love
music.
the idea of Cyril becoming friends with Eli, or just that I didn't realize that is that with that is what Eli was training to do, was to be like a supply specialist. Eli
Yes.
Vanto, sorry to be clear.
Yes.
Um,
Eli Vanto went to school to do the type of job that Cyril has until Thrawn thwarted his path.
yes.
Also got a shout out River. Yes, for the costume design. Agreed.
Yeah.
Do we need to show Death Star lower decks?
That would be funny.
Okay, so the other diegetic music, the other diegetic thing was that Gorman, I don't know what it was, like travel ad that they showed.
Travel
Yeah,
propaganda. Yeah.
yeah,
It was
About the
a PSA,
spiders.
is what it was, right?
something like that.
Whoever did the voice acting on that just got the style down.
It was
And
like a
with the mu-
PBS style, like old PBS style, like quick news documentary kind of deal, you know?
like
It's like the type of thing
tourism
you get
almost.
before going on a Disneyland ride, where it's like preps you
Yeah,
for.
it felt very.
Or it would be like it would be pre-reel at the old cinema back in the 30s or the 40s. Like you would see
Mm,
that
Hmm.
before you saw a movie, right? You know?
yeah,
It also feels like the what was that, the Ministry of Time in the Loki part of the Marvel universe.
Oof.
Uh, what was that? Like I really enjoyed they specifically incorporated
The
like
TV,
propaganda,
TVA,
TVA.
yeah,
time
propaganda,
very.
I guess, made from Time Variance Authority. Yes, thank you. It was a lot like that
Mm.
for a moment.
I, it was kind of great to see. It was great to see Krennic again. Number one, I'm a Krennic fan from Rogue One. As a villain, I think he's pretty cool. But just to have him there, explain like your children's children are not authorized to understand, like your own superiors, your own bosses, whoever's not in this room can't know any of this, and the first thing he does is play like a slide projector, and you have all these like high ranking imperial officials like, what are we watching right now? And then he says, forget the spider, immediately goes like, and now forget the spiders, we want a rock. And they're like, what is happening?
Making fun of Krennic is
um,
one of my favorite Star Wars pastimes. I was just thinking maybe I should be him for Halloween.
that would be.
That'd be good.
You would need, yeah, a cape. Would
The
be
and his cape
Mandalorian.
paramount importance.
holder pens.
Okay, so the music in that ad
Hmm.
is quite nice. It the promotional tourism
It's
video. It's quite a mood, and it's must have been fun for the composers to um, compose in such a range of styles. That one
Definitely.
was written by Brandon Roberts and Maxwell Karmazin. It's called Gorman! Track 8.
It's awesome.
And in it, like in the video and of course in the music, they promote this, or they make a big deal out of the Gorman Valley horn, which is this, which looks like I don't know, it looks like images of
Alpen
yeah, exactly, the
Alpen tuba.
yeah,
Well, it's got like a
Alpen horn.
bag. It looks like so. It's like a bagpipe horn or a bellows. It looks like it's is that a bellows right under his arm?
Mm.
I think it does have bellows. I think it
I
may
think it's a
even say that
bellows, so
somewhere.
it's not blown. I feel like it's like that's what makes you know the
Can you
sound.
explain bellows?
True.
Bellows being
Mhm.
like being a bag that will that is made to suck in air as you expand the bag and then blow it out a very particular uh, end point of the bag, like a fireplace bellows. Exactly that, like a fireplace bellows seen in like types of bagpipes, very popular
Or an accordion.
that are arm driven instead of yep, and an accordion. Exactly. You move your arm out and it just sucks in air, and then when you push it down, where it took in the air gets sealed usually,
Yeah.
and then it expresses the air out into whatever you're trying to activate.
It really does look like that. Let's see.
Yeah, right. It looks like
Yeah.
a bellows. Yeah,
Yeah, it
so
does.
he has to pump it, open it up,
Yep.
and then well, hold on. Yeah, like a
Justice gonna go get his bagpipes.
Oh, that's
I
right.
wonder
I
what
forgot that.
determines the pitch.
Right, because it also was kind of all on the same pitch, I think, throughout. It's like,
Ooh. Justin's showing us.
it's this kind of a thing. If I pull it out, it'll do one
oh, I
thing.
see. Can
and
you
when
do
I
a?
push it,
Can you show a different angle?
it expels air into the,
Yeah.
and then I gotta squeeze this, and it'll do that.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
But yeah, the imagery that they've used for this make it look very alpine. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
you just gotta have that
Lederhosen.
scenery. Yeah.
well, that's not
Yeah,
Lederhosen.
really,
It's
really
just,
interesting music over it.
Yeah.
very Swiss.
And you know, it's like a classical waltz is like the track, right? It's trying to think of which composer it reminds me of, like what pieces I've played, but definitely like classic movies from like the 50s and 60s. It reminds me a little bit. It kind of reminds me of the theme to Curb Your Enthusiasm, honestly.
I don't think I'm not
Uh,
familiar.
It's by a 1970s composer, Luciano Michelini, and it's called Frolic, and it's yeah, it kind of reminds me of Curb, bum bum bum, da 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 da, that kind of like sweeping, orchestral, you know, kind of
It sounds dancey. It sounds like it's
parlor
from a
music.
musical, like a 50s musical, maybe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I'm thinking. It feels like something you would hear over like a, you know,
Or,
the age of
you know,
Hollywood.
it sounds Viennese waltzy too.
Yeah.
Maybe tavernish as well, like a beer tavern. I also picture that a little. I mean, maybe not with a full orchestra, but
It's a really, oh, it reminds me a lot of the John Williams travel documentary with a talking suitcase. What is
I really-
this?
I think I've seen that.
You've seen that?
No, I don't think I've seen
I've never heard of this, but I need to know
Yeah.
about that. See, here the orchestra, I feel like the orchestra is used in a very different way in this track than it is in the rest of the episode, which is
I feel like because it's very stylized.
It is.
and recorded in a way that's it's got that kind of like low fidelity phonograph almost, or old projector audio kind of thing going on with it, or at least being played out of like a really crappy speaker in the conference room that they have.
yeah. But I mean, even on the
You know, and
soundtrack
it-
when it's more clear,
Right, but then so then for the music itself, it's so stylized as a older recognizable kind of
Style.
like exactly 50s 60s Broadway on review, pre-roll to the talkies kind of a thing. You know, it's Very, 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 very that style. I guess that's what's also so jarring and interesting about Andor is that it's taking for. I know we've endlessly talked about like what Star Wars is, what Star Wars sounds like, what and I what I love about this group is that we're very open, incredibly open to what Star Wars can sound like and be in those respective senses. But what's so interesting about Andor is the musical choices and that it makes such highly Earth recognizable, out of world recognizable choices, like a 4/4 drum beat with like 60 strings and this kind of smooth jazz thing, or like here the first thing we think about is 50s strings music, like Broadway or Viennese waltz kind of a thing, and it exists in this world in a similar fashion to how we understand it. I think that's what's really cool about this series, and especially a moment like this projection music, like you said, Xanthi, like it's like a Disneyland ride, or like an
Yeah.
old Disney documentary on something that you could find in the older libraries.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Connor Power sheds some light. It is his first score, the travel documentary, written while he was serving in Air Force in Newfoundland. That's cool.
That would track.
Yeah. By the way, great job on the background graphic with people's names and everything. I should have shouted Ender out much sooner. That was made by Ender Smith, Arc Fonts, and
Awesome.
they spent many hours on it. And
Hey,
yeah,
thank you.
you can see that when someone's not here, they have a brick behind them. It's morbid,
Because
but
we're dead.
Oh, really?
Because we're dead.
yeah. James, you can watch the replay later and see that when you disappeared, there was just a brick that said James behind
Here,
you.
I'll sign up. Hold on. You can. I'll reload.
Aw. Wait, is that our last? Is that our names in
Ender, are you in
like
chat? You can describe what you were doing there.
Arabesh?
It's not Arabesh. It's something else. It's a different language. But yes, so, essentially.
It's Endurian.
Yeah.
It's from the moon of Ender. Thanks, Ender. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just looking at it anew.
And then-
'Cause I'm like, the breakdown was also Ender's idea instead of breakdown. Because I'm not really catchy like that. Okay. Does anyone else have? Oh, that is Baziz, the language used on Ferrix. So it's appropriate
Love it.
for what it is.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have the random. I did indeed find I sent in our text chat because I maybe didn't see where to put it in our normal chat. The dress from Robert Wood that
Oh, I see.
that was like Mon Mothma's dress. Like I see a pretty clear connection there,
Oh, yeah.
just in terms of I don't really know what the headpiece is, but
I can see that.
yeah, Robert one makes a lot of beautiful. He can do like butterflies and all sorts of things with that fabric pattern.
Matthew says, I'll be catching the rest of the episode later as I'm off to catch a screening of Revenge of the Sith. Have so much fun.
Woo, fun.
woo.
Let's see. There were kind of Ferrix sounding hammers. Let's see. The music on Mina Rao, it felt like optimistic. I'll give you a timestamp. Maybe I'll give it like 19 of episode 1. Or 10. Okay, episode 2 is probably clearer. Episode 2 at about 10 minutes in. And I think it's an interesting choice for that area. It's like 10:07. Oh, I can't. Okay, sorry, just looking at my notes. We also had Cyril's theme come back shortly after that.
Hmm.
Do you all
That
remember
part you
that one?
just played feels to me kind of like Mahler rural or pastoral vibes,
It does sound pastoral.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Or Dvorak-y.
And then the Cyril stuff is like the pizzicato. It's like, and then I think before it was also going like in season 1. So yeah, that's a fun one to get back.
There was also a lot of really good sound design of technology. There was a lot of, so there was one, the sort of radio, there were a lot of radio usages with like plugging in and plugging out things and that kind of
Yes.
thing. Um, there were, what am I thinking of? I made a note about like lights going on with very nice clickety clickities, like at the beginning of episode 1 in particular. Just a lot of really good machinery being recorded and designed.
Yeah. The
Like the
when
TIE fighter.
Clea is seeking like in the radio, doing the radio thing.
Oh, that radio alarm.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
So many good.
So
There's so
good.
many good sounds. Listening back to like, I always enjoy the part of preparing for this podcast and these streams is when Xanthi sends us just the audio, and I go back and find all my favorite spots that I want to go like remake or talk about or timestamp and stuff. And just listening to these episodes, the sound design is so good.
Do you have any favorite sounds, Justin? From
The
these episodes?
radio for one, the radio, the from the alarm, the little like blippy, didsy, blitzy alarm into her like activating the whole radio kind of a thing is pretty rad. Listening back to the dinner scene was kind of weird because it's got all the food and plating sounds so well done in a weird way.
So like it sounded too
Anything,
real, or
well, it just sounded like, yeah, it sounded real. It sounded good. You know what I mean? It's like they took the time to like put those. They could have just like said, oh yeah, like we assume the soup is there or the fondue is there. We don't need to hear fondue or the plate or the dripping of when, that kind of stuff. Anything to do with this experimental TIE fighter is pretty rad too, that Cassian has stolen.
yeah.
All the sounds in that, the alarms that go off, kind of the cannons, and how just like the whole cockpit operates is just really really cool sound design. The explosions are explosions, like fine, but the TIE fighter itself is pretty cool. I really enjoyed all those sounds. Any vehicle sounds too. We had the classic echo from the what's it speeder bike when Brasso is going off to find Will. You get that, what's it, the woo kind of sound. It's one of my favorite Star Wars
Yeah.
sounds. I get really excited every time I hear it.
Yeah. It was really good. Trying to think if there were any other standout sounds. Anyone else can feel free to chime in chat and
Yeah, I mean,
press the band badge.
I wonder. I mean, I don't. I guess it's more just a discussion about. I'm sure there's sound and music stuff that I'd like to hear. Kind of come up, but I just would love to chat about like the whole Yavin 4
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find out is Yavin 4, right? And I guess it's a Yavin, isn't it? But
I don't know. I say Yavin.
But yeah, I found that a really interesting choice. Lots of because I mean it's very I think it's very like on the nose symbolic, right? It's like there's like infighting happening within like leftist movements
Mhm.
that, and it's like they're so close. It's like you guys are so close to getting to be in an organization that actually will ultimately overthrow the fascist government. Like literally, you're on the planet that becomes
Yeah.
the base, and the base is right over there. But you guys are blowing each other up, like fighting over. It was poignant. I thought it was very well done, but it was also very clearly telegraphed, kind of like what the meta narrative was behind that scene, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh, and
There's the sound of the monster.
yeah, the sound of
Yeah.
the monster. Let's talk about the sound of the monster. Yeah,
Good monster.
It was pretty good.
that was a
Big
good monster.
lizard.
Yeah, and that
It was a
also
little
just like
Tyrannosaurus Rexy.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was like that was definitely a moment of them like oh, you guys are fighting, but there's like monsters afoot that are about to eat all of you, no matter what. So like quick figure your shit out and like get together. I also like Star Wars rock paper scissors. Like whatever
Yeah.
they were doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roski rules or whatever.
great.
Roski rules.
Rusky rules.
Which
well, it's
means-
called Five Hands. The game was Five Hands, right? We were gonna play Five Hands. Rusky rules.
And that means what did they say? It means like no. It was something sounded
Total
hardcore.
submission.
Total submission. Yeah, which
Total
I
submission.
don't understand what they mean by that. What does that mean?
I think just whoever. I
Just
think
ask
it's just.
Cyril.
You die.
I think it means that the winner gets to just make all the decisions.
Okay, because I thought for a second it was like you kill the losers or something. I don't know. I'm glad it wasn't that. The
As
lizard
opposed
eats
to
you.
like you get one favor. It's like no,
Yeah.
like this is it, definitive.
Yeah, you're
Like,
playing
you don't
for
just
all
get to
the
make
chips.
One decision. Like this
Mhm.
is like an all-in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was really cute though. That was a really cute scene.
Agreed.
I'm a huge fan of rock paper scissors versions in any universe. It's one of my favorite.
Good
Did
old
anyone
rock.
catch
Nothing
what they were
beats
doing?
rock.
One was this,
Yeah.
or like maybe like a claw. Have to be the same thing.
Yeah. One was something like that.
That's the only one I caught.
Yeah.
It was something like I think
It's
the
like
first one was
Snake.
like this. I think the first one was like this. The second one was like this. The third one they did was like this.
That's good.
That was good. That was a good thing.
Good note.
Way to go. And then there's the whole Bix sequence, right? I mean, we've got.
Yeah. I guess we should talk about that. I thought
Yeah.
I thought that actor was very good, and I was like, oh, I look
Which-
forward to
He
seeing him
was.
the rest of the season. The Imperial.
Yeah, nope.
Christ.
What?
Jesus.
He was.
He did
I
a
thought
great
he was a
job.
good
He was
actor.
sweet.
Like
He was
he
sweet.
portrayed like
I thought so
just
too.
he
being
was.
politely
His-
hitting on her, and then the change
Polite.
of it was very realistic.
His scream was great. That just it was very convincing.
Yes.
Um,
That was a good sound design moment. Was the scream heard from inside the cabin, and then his second is outside and hears and like is kind of trying to wonder like why would a scream like that come from in there?
God, I was so
Eh.
happy when that guy got fucking smoked at the end of the semester. Or at the end.
hammer
I
to
dropped- I
the
dropped my-
face.
I just said episode. I just said semester instead of episode. That was my
Again.
first.
Oh,
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm so glad. Anyway,
So what did you think about them saying the word rape? I mean, I don't feel like it. Like we don't have to talk about it. I don't know if anyone.
I
has
mean,
strong
I've heard the
opinions. Some people
controversy.
have. Some people
I've
have
heard little-
opinions.
Yeah, I've heard a little bits of the controversy about it. I'm trying not to read too much of this show as I'm experiencing it, kind of a thing, and letting things happen. It was incredibly jarring to hear that word, just because it's such an uncomfortable word and it's such an uncomfortable situation, and especially how well acted it was and choreographed that it was. Um, I thought it brought a very different kind of weight to what is Star Wars? What belongs in Star Wars? What doesn't belong in Star Wars? But for how grounding and real this show can be, um, we went there.
Yeah.
And of course, and with everything else that this show throws at us in different, weird, insane ways, um, I think the only discomfort I had, besides experiencing a scene like that, was the word. And it makes me wonder, had the word been different, would people feel differently? Not to make up a different word. I'm not saying let's make up a different word for like whatever. I'm saying like had she said a different line that didn't involve,
Like he was assaulting me.
yeah, or even he tried to force himself, or he tried to overtake, or he, you know what I mean? Like, had would it have been when we obviously know what we just witnessed,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. You know, I don't want to say like come across as like, oh, I'm fine with it because I'm very against those kinds of scenes in shows and movies, anyways. But how?
Like against scenes where that show like sexual assault.
Yeah, and I don't want to get derailed too much into that kind of stuff and those opinions, but it's like how they did it. I thought they did it incredibly well, especially because he gets a fucking hammer to the face afterwards. And if you're a fan of the band Cannibal Corpse, they have a great song called Hammer Smash Face that would have gone great to that scene for Bakes' rage and stuff like that. But I do understand the insanity, you know, the feelings behind this. And with that incredibly dropped data, there's a work emergency I have to attend to, so I will be right back.
All right.
And with that,
Christina, James, do you have thoughts on it? Do you have anything else you want to say about that?
No, I mean I second a lot of Justin's thoughts. Yeah, Christina, what do you think?
I like that it wasn't sugar coated.
Yeah.
I can see arguments either way, but I prefer that it. I think it was reasonably tasteful.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sorry, my sound changed. My headphones died. But yeah, I thought it was a good representation of what actually happens when there's such a power dynamic between people, and when one person who does have power is aware that there's another person who doesn't have any defenses against them.
Mm-hmm.
If that person is quote quote a bad person, they'll it was just a good, I think it was an accurate portrayal of the sort of reason why it's important for the rebels to fight the Empire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tony Gilroy has
I
spoken
didn't have
on
any.
it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to just offer my own like. Yeah,
Please.
I didn't have any. I had zero issues with the inclusion of that word in terms of like. I mean, it was definitely uncomfortable to witness and uncomfortable to hear and all that stuff. But I definitely I don't have any criticisms on my own of it. Of it. Like like I said, I would second a lot of what Justin and Christine said. Yeah, but yeah, it didn't make it any more fun to witness. But I think that's the point, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Tony Gilroy, when asked about the Bix scene, Tony Gilroy explained to The Hollywood Reporter that when telling a story about war, shying away from sexual assault didn't feel truthful. I get one shot to tell everything I know or can discover or that I've learned about revolution, about battles, with as many incidents and as many colors as I can get in there without having the story tip over, says Gilroy. I mean, let's be honest, man. The history of civilization, there's a huge arterial component of it that's rape. All of us who are here, we are all the product of rape. I mean, armies in power throughout history have committed rape. So to not touch on it in some way, it just was organic and it felt right coming about as a power trip for this guy. I was really trying to make a path for Bix that would immediately lead to clarity, but a difficult path to get back to clarity. Asked about Disney's reaction to the scene, Gilroy says he didn't get any studio pushback. No one ever said anything about it. No one ever said anything about it ever. Gilroy said. But I mean, we have limits on what we can do. We are very aware of what we can do sexually and violence-wise. Those limits are made very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I don't feel like they went particularly over. So
Yeah. They walked up to
yeah, I mean this is kind of what I'm saying with this show to a certain extent is I think that I think this show in this season, the way I'm kind of interpreting it is like they're basically saying like this is a show for adults. It plain and simple. Like this show has been made for young adults to older adults, right? Like, and that's who we're making this show for. We don't have to sit here and like fit into a box where everybody thinks that all Star Wars content needs to sit in. And we're just gonna make the show that we want to make, and we're gonna tell the most honest story in our powerful message that we're gonna make, and that's what we're doing. And I feel like this season is much more like this is what we're doing, like right in your face, like deal with it, as opposed to last season, which was kind of still towing that line, or at least I feel like the narrative around Lucasfilm was still like, oh, is this a show for kids? Like, it feels too boring for kids, or something. You know what I mean? As the like, no one, I feel like I don't think I've seen a lot of people being like holding Andor to the standard that it still needs to be engaging for like a specific audience, the same way that season 1 was. Like nobody is claiming that Andor needs to be competitive with like the Mandalorian's audience. Anymore at least what I'm seeing. I think people are like, no, this is an adult show about Star Wars.
regarding the attempted rape, I think it is also interesting that we have throughout Star Wars movies already seen a lot of versions of enslavement and women being sexually subjugated, but it being painted over with kind of a more like, oh, but this is just a funny part of the plot, like way. So, like, yeah, like having Leia chained to Jabba is just seen. I don't know. It's the tone of it is different. Meaning, like, it's easier to be more comfortable with it than perhaps we should be.
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Any more Andor thoughts?
Well, I was just gonna say that I think that the whole TIE Fighter opening sequence was like, in some ways, I was like, "Whoa, they're doing like a big Star Warsy spaceship shootout," and they did that like maybe once with that Luthen scene in the first season, like, and that was just like him like jumping into hyperspace once, right? Like, or something like that. Like, this is like the first in this scene, or in this series, like a big old some Star Warsy Star Wars going on. You know what I mean? Like, I found that the most. It was and it's interesting that it was the very first scene of the season, which is like we're gonna start off with a good old dogfight between some spaceships zapping their lasers. And just making it all a big old spacey romp out in the galaxy. And then they went back into like Andor-ish rest of the stuff. So I'm curious if they're gonna do. Yeah, I guess I'm curious about where that season is heading, because you're gonna head into like more of like the formation of the rebellion and all that stuff. So I'm very curious if we're gonna see more stuff like that. Yeah.
And do you all think that Tay Kolma is dead now?
Yeah, he died. He gone.
He's either dead or he's blackmailed.
Like Cinta
Disappeared,
couldn't have been.
as they say.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe Cinta
Justin,
is
you're
actually
echoing
gonna
back.
blackmail him. Not
Yeah, I hear it.
It was cool to see Cinta for a moment, though.
It was.
And Vel got to see her.
Phil got to see her.
Yeah, so I think
Justin,
it's interesting.
Probably just me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it's Christina. Okay, sorry. Justin, sorry to blame it on you. It happened when you joined, though. That it seemed like Tay was on board and going to be a helpful ally in season 1, and kind of disappointing to see where he's gone. But it does kind of parallel, like, like all these rich people, like what did he say? The rebel activity has soured his investments. So now that his investments are being threatened, he's not
Right.
so down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, and
For,
we've been seeing the same things out of many media personalities over the last few months that have essentially changed their script and how they describe and talk about what's happening politically in our country. Many people that are. If anybody wants to look up, I would strongly recommend a very recent op-ed written by Larry David called "My Dinner with Adolf." And he's essentially making fun of Bill Maher, who recently went on his show and
oh yeah.
just basically humanized his
Trump.
recent dinner interaction with Trump. And Larry David wrote this genius piece of satire as an op-ed for the New York Times called "My Dinner with Adolf," where he basically does the same thing but with with Hitler.
That sounds fun to read.
Yeah, and I think you just see that these people that are quote unquote allies are only allies as far as they can benefit, financially from being, resistance people.
Yep.
It's also a good point if your investments are what was the word, spoiled by the rebel activity. That implies that the things you're investing in are the imperial capital. If your investment is in some sort of local food production in some specific area, that's probably not going to be affected by rebel activity because it's something that just serves a community and this kind of thing. But if your investment is like, I don't know, yeah, I just make a point that's kind of an indicator about what kind of investments Tay has.
I thought
love
for a
that
moment.
delivery. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love the Luther delivery of when she's like, "I don't know what you mean by that," and he goes, "How nice for you." Right when Mon is describing what the situation is with Tay, and Luther says like, "Oh, yeah, things have changed here," and she's like, "I don't know what you mean. I don't know what this means," and then he's like, "How nice for you to act like you don't know what that means," you know.
Mm-hmm.
And to point out her privilege, that she's lived a privileged life thus far, that she hasn't had to literally fear for her safety and potentially hire a team of bodyguards just to keep Tay from coming to get her. It sounds like she and Luthen's like, yeah, I've lived the last 20 years of my life fearing for every step I take, every place I go. And
Right.
now you're beginning to understand what that might be like, and that isn't a great feeling.
Yeah.
I kind of felt for a second there too that Tay was trying to proposition her sexually as well. And we were seeing two different versions of that happening because Perrin has been there's been this running thing of that they used to be closer way back in the day, and even Perrin in one of the episodes like, "Oh, aren't you sleeping with him?" It's like,
Yeah.
you're always around, and like just like so like, well, clearly he's your lover, like because their relationship is in shambles, kind of a thing. So I wonder if it was, for a moment there, I thought it was kind of Tay being like, well, everyone already thinks we are, so you got to do something for me here since I've done so much for you. But then they quickly turned it into like, oh, number. I'll find a number for him, That's
Feeling
interesting.
undervalued.
Undervalued.
Matthew said the episodes were amazing, also painfully relevant despite it being written years ago and filmed some time ago. Yeah, I guess that's... Yeah, I forgot about that part. Like, it seems like, oh, it's so relevant to right now, but it's also been relevant to 3-5 years ago.
Yep.
It's wild.
Yeah. Anyone have any final thoughts? We'll have more to talk about next week.
I'm excited to see
Star Wars is
where this
back,
is
y'all.
going.
I'm excited too.
I'm very excited.
All right.
Darth Maul is going to show
Also,
up next episode.
one final really nasty sound. When they opened up the fruit, the smelly fruit, to eat it, the poor rebels that didn't have any food and they were trying to figure out the nasty fruit, I just point out That was gross.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, do I have an outro written? Okay. The Band Batch and/or Music Breakdown will return next Saturday. Is that true? Yes, next Saturday. The day before May the 4th. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. Or, you just check back on the channel. Anyway, does anyone else have any last minute things or anything to promote or whatnot? Well, thank you for joining us, chat. It's been a good discussion. And yeah, always fun to talk to the Band Batch. And I believe we will all be here next week as well. Yeah.
I will
gonna
not
do
be here next week.
Oh, no, you won't?
I will not
okay.
be.
Okay. So 3/4 of
But I
us
will
will be here next. Please send your
3/4.
thoughts.
I will send things.
Yes, looking forward to that. And then, yeah, okay, let's do our outro music, and I will. Actually, yeah, that's the. Oh no! Oh, there we go. Look how profesh.